What is going on, nerds? Hello, nerds! Nerds for Humanity. This is going to be a quick stream because I actually have hopped out of a hackathon with the of the people volunteers to do a little promotion of our volunteer effort, nonprofit effort of the people.us. So if you're ever wondering, like, what the hell is Of the People or what are they up to now, this is a live stream for you. But before we do that, let's just get into like who's trending on Of the People, so we can see some hot candidates that are getting a lot of approval voting, and we can learn about OTP by checking it out. So if you haven't, just go to ofthepeople.us. And we'll sort by all-time votes for POTUS. By the way, this we recently cleaned up a lot of the visual design, so thank you to our volunteers, including Aaron Sarnat, for cleaning this up. Remember, it used to be like a big clump of blue tags at the top, and it was hard to filter. Now it's so much nicer. So if you're interested in the POTUS race based on who's getting the most approval votes, the answer is on the Other People site, which has now almost 1,000 voters. So it's not just a handful. You can see Andrew Yang, not surprisingly, given a lot of people who watch this channel and they're in the Yang gang knowing about OTP. He's got the most. But then Marianne Williamson, Pete Buttigieg, in order of who got the most approval votes. And if you're wondering, like, oh, well, how does one give or get an approval vote? All you do is you click on a candidate that you think is interesting, like, say, let's say Buttigieg, and then you click on this green button, and it'll ask you to log in, which you can do in like 2 seconds. And then from there, it will record your vote, and that will affect the order that these folks are listed on the main site. And then if you're like, okay, well, I didn't know anything about Chris Sununu, or I'm curious, then you can still click on them. You don't have to click approve right away. You can watch like a video.
Look, the last time you were on,
where he gets interviewed. You can read a little bit about what he stands for. You can ask a question. You can see what he's tweeting about. I mean, this one, he just tweeted about it a couple days ago, so up to the minute. You can see other candidates, and then on the top right here, you can see a link to his Twitter and his official website. And then from there, if you still like him, you can click approve, or if not, you can just hit the back button on your browser, or swipe, I guess, to the right, however you have your gestures for your phone browser, and then move on and see who else is there. And then if you want to see, like, hey, I'm curious about who is just within the Daniel B says, I don't know how Pete is that high up. Sad. Well, Daniel, if you think someone else should be higher, you could always approval vote them. The orders here are by trending, which is number of recent approval votes, newest listed, and all time. So if we go by all time, you do have Yang, Williamson, Buttigieg as our top three. I could see Buttigieg being something of a candidate that everybody kind of is okay with, but maybe they're not like, he's not their first choice. But I think that's what approval voting does. It tends to highlight candidates that most people can be, can feel like they're okay with them. If you see who are the least approved POTUS candidates, you got a bunch that are archived. So we always list our archive last. But of the non-archive, and archive means like they basically said, I am not running. So Pompeo used to be an active candidate. He was definitely the least approved. But of the active and when I say active, I mean they have not ruled out running yet. Asa Hutchinson, Ted Cruz, and Jimmy Dore are the least approved. And I'd be curious, Daniel, if you're surprised to see Asa, Ted, and Jimmy as the least approved. That kind of makes sense to me. I mean, Ted's an interesting one. He's so well known, but I don't know. I don't know a lot of people are willing to click the green button for him. Now, you can also do it by Democrats and Republicans. So if we say, let's just focus on the Republicans, since there's probably more action there. You know, the most approved on the Republican side, interestingly enough, is Glenn Youngkin. And so if some of you are wondering, like, who the hell is Glenn Youngkin? He is governor of Virginia. Let's see. Went to Rice undergrad, Harvard for his MBA. He's worked at the Carlyle Group, an investment firm. Won a winning coalition in 2021 for governor of Virginia. Let's see, his day one agenda looks like parents, law enforcement, tax cuts. So sounds like Youngkin feels more like a traditional, maybe like a Romney Republican. Again, interesting how approval voting shows who is sometimes the most like exciting candidates don't go to the top of the list for approval voting, which does highlight something that we're talking about within the OTP, of the people volunteer team, is like, oh, do we want to introduce other types of voting mechanisms in addition to approval voting, like star voting or ranked choice voting? So let us know in the comments if you think we should add other voting techniques. To be honest, approval voting was what we started with because that was the easiest to implement, but happy to look at other ones. Now, in terms of other Republicans that are getting the most approval votes, you've got Nikki Haley, and then Vivek Ramaswamy and Chris Christie. Now, sadly, if you think about what's going to happen in the Republican primary, these three are probably least likely to do well, partly because a primary, kind of rewards the most either energizing or polarizing candidates, however you want to put it, sometimes both. So who's next on the list in the Republican list? You got Chris Christie, then Tim Scott, then Ron DeSantis, then Chris Sununu, then Mike Pence, then Donald Trump. So Donald Trump is listed. He's number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then Brian Kemp, Ted Cruz, and Asa. So, approval voting. If you do an open primary where anyone can approval vote, at least for the almost 1,000 voters on OTP, you get Youngkin, Haley, and Ramaswamy. And on the Democratic side, the most approved are Williamson, Buttigieg, Sanders, then Joe Biden. So Biden would be number 4. Then Katie Porter, Nina Turner, Klobuchar, Whitmer, AOC, Michelle Obama, Harris, Hillary Clinton, Joe Manchin, RFK Jr. And then Gavin Newsom used to be up there, but now that he's archived because he's basically said he won't run, he's last on this list. But it's so interesting how when you use approval voting and you let anybody participate, you get a very different outcome than the current system. But that's kind of part of the problem. And this is a demonstration of it. All right, so I think there's 2 more things I want to talk about. There's a question from Saul. Yang is running as a third party. Well, Yang is part of a third party, but he has not announced that he's going to run. So if he does, that would be super exciting. So we've listed him here not as an official candidate, but he is in the overall POTUS 2024 running. And as you can see here, he's all time the most. But then in terms of recent approval votes, he's number 2 after Whitmer and right above Sanders and Sununu. So yeah, it's pretty fun. Go ahead and if you haven't, make sure you approval vote whoever you like so that you can affect the rankings in OTP. And let me do 2 more things. Thank the people who make OTP possible. Those are our supporters. And then I'll talk about some of the things that our volunteers are working on right now in terms of improvements to the OTP site. But first, let's talk about our supporters. So, OTP supporters, and you can see this list of the people, and you click on the About link. But let's just head down. First of all, we got to thank our Patreon supporters. They basically help us cover our costs for Amazon Web Services, GitHub, some other software licensing tools, and then a little bit of marketing from time to time. So thank you. And this is in order. These are active Patreon supporters. They're still donating, and they're listed by order of their total lifetime support. So thank you so much to Eric Sanchez, Elizabeth Owen, Tony Perella, Aaron Sarnat, Rob, John Perino, Timothy Jordan, Jessica Ganoan, Trickle Up, Travis Klein, Muhan Jang, and Dylan Shell. You guys are awesome. And then our product development team, myself, Ian Schaefer, Shay Ellison, Aaron Sarnat, James Neff. Those are our active volunteers. And then we have some alumni volunteers as well listed underneath. And then there's also alumni Patreon supporters who aren't active anymore, but they were. And they did help us kind of get to where we are today. This is like a multi-year project, and just so excited that, the combination of people volunteering a few hours a month to help us like fix bugs and add new features, some who are volunteering a few hours a week. That part of that's possible to our previous Patreon supporters, like who are listed here. So I'll just quickly shout them out: Tohir, Rockout, Iggy, Austin, Byram, Christina, Thrive, Steph, Brian, Sujan, Michael, Noah, Omar, Nathan, Kimberly, Patrick, Chance, Pat, and Damien. And that's ordered by amount of lifetime support. So Tohir was our biggest legacy alumni supporter. And then here again are our active supporters. And if you are watching this and you're like, hey, I like what other people is doing, it's kind of like Yelp for political candidates, and it lets us discover people, more easily, and lets us get kind of, express our opinion about who we like in a way that isn't controlled by, closed party primaries. And you're like, maybe you are a supporter of the Forward Party or of Common Sense Party or an independent. OTP is an example where we're just trying to like use the internet to let people express their views a little more in other ways. Some of the improvements that we're working on right now, the biggest one is probably, one, we fixed a couple of bugs this morning around like when you log in. We want to make it a little bit more convenient for you to continue what you were doing after you log in. And then also there was a bug on the Twitter link here, which is now fixed, and it takes you to the right place. So you can see anybody's Twitter account in the top right corner of their candidate profile. And then what we're working on, some of the things we're working on are, hey, if I'm in the main feed, I want to be able to see if I've already voted someone. So right now I'd have to click on each thing and then see if it says remove approval or approve to kind of figure it out. So we'd like to be able to do that from within the feed. And then you could just kind of one-click vote up people from this feed. And then the other thing that we're thinking about is adding a testimonials section. So it's kind of like Ask Me Anything, except if you approve someone, you can have the ability to write a few sentences on why you think they're awesome. And then if the candidate approves it, it'll get posted and added to their profile. So we're trying to make these candidate profiles really useful to both the candidates as well as people trying to learn more about the candidates. So we think testimonials will be another big one. And then the other thing we talked about is other types of voting methodologies like STAR or RCV. So that'll be something we'll look at. And then we're also looking at cleaning up how we handle tags. And then also thinking about adding a boost button where if you've already approval voted someone, you can kind of like reaffirm your support for them. And then that would kind of introduce like a new ranking based on like enthusiasm, and that would kind of reset every 7 days. You could kind of re-up your support. Yep, agree with Dylan. Yang has not indicated he's going to run anything. I mean, I would say, if we end up with a Trump-Biden 2024, you could see a lane for Yang, but I think the one thing that Yang is dependent on is the Forward Party getting on all the ballots. And right now, I think the No Labels Party is probably further ahead in terms of getting 50 states to recognize them as a party so that they can put their nominee on the November 2024 ballots. So, yeah, I'd be curious to hear from you all. Like, so people have asked me, like, hey, how do you feel about the Forward Party? I'm like, well, I just wish I could see more progress from them, either in the way of convention or policies or candidates or getting ballot access. But lately, I've been spending a lot of time learning more about the Common Sense Party here in California. So if you're watching in California, check out the Common Sense Party. You can switch your party registration. It takes like 5 minutes. You can do it online, and it will allow them to get ballot access to field a third-party candidate. So, but yeah, definitely keep an eye on Forward Party as well. I think the more parties we can see be successful, the better. So yeah, that's a quick summary. I know I said it would be a quick stream. But if you have any questions for me about OTP, what we're doing, or if you're like, hey, I want to support this effort, a couple things you can do right now. Like this stream, share it out, comment below on, what improvements you'd like to see on Of the People. And then if you want to support us on Patreon, that would be amazing. And you can get a link to that page. Basically, you just go to this accelerate this project button, and that will open up another tab and take you to our Patreon page. And then you can, there's 12 people supporting us now. By the way, here are some of the volunteers. This is a screenshot from this morning. So James, Aaron, Shay, Ian, all working as we speak. They're in another tab. Trying to make this site better for everybody. So you can then, join and become a Patreon supporter, and we definitely appreciate that. And then other things you can do is just let candidates that you follow know that you recently approval voted them on OTP, and that'll help them realize and learn more about our platform as well. Okay, Dylan is saying, hey, the Forward Party says they won't run a candidate in 24. So that's, yeah, if that's their, I think I've heard that as well, that they're going to focus on local elections. So is there a world where No Labels drafts Andrew Yang to be a running mate? That's possible, because they're definitely, No Labels is definitely planning on having the option to field a candidate in November 24. But yeah, that's a quick summary. Thanks to everybody for joining. And let me just now give a quick thank you to the people who make Nerds for Humanity possible. So that's another way you can support this content. But I would I would prefer that you, oh, hold on. I got too many tabs open. Okay. So, but I prefer you support OTP even over Nerds for Humanity. But if you like Nerds for Humanity in general, you want to support both, and there are people who do that, you can do so. And so let me give just on YouTube, click the join button. And who has done that already? Soldier One has. He's a senior vice president, our biggest supporter of the channel. And then VP level, we've got Kristen Slevin and Bike. And then the next level down is hardcore. Gene, David, DK, Jackalego, Curse, Mr. History, Mona, Vaughn, Yang, Robert, Dean, Galessa, Jay Perrin. I think Jay Perrin is one of those that supports both Nerds for Humanity and OTP. So, booyah, Jay Perrin. AH, Dana, Jason, Daniel, and Mickey. And then at the verified level, this is only $1.99 a month. You got Lisa, Albert, Brandon, Sophia, Doris, Emerald, Ben, James, Ira, Elizabeth, Shoni, Dr. William, Cameron, Zemri, Mai, Brittany, Lori, Wada, Kevin, T, Jeremy, David, Nicholas, Mike, Aurora, Zig, N, Roberto, and Caleb. And thanks to StreamYard, who helps with some of the streaming costs, so appreciate that. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye, nerds. But again, we'll finish off with just one last look on the Of the People trending list. Gretchen Whitmer, surprising. But I kind of, this is an example of like, what would it be like if you had a kind of moderate presidential candidate? I think Gretchen probably would fulfill that duty. But then you've got Yang and Sanders and Trump on the trending list, and Robert F. Kennedy, Chris Sununu, Katie Porter, Tim Scott, Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy are your most trending. And then in terms of all-time most approval votes, which you can affect all of these rankings by just clicking on any candidate on ofthepeople.us and clicking that approve button. You got the Youngster, Williamson, Buttigieg, Sanders, Joe Biden, Katie Porter, Nina Turner, Klobuchar, Whitmer. How many till we get to Trump? Youngkin, Amash, Haley, AOC, Ramaswamy, Dean, Obama, Harris, Clinton, Christie. Then you get to Trump, who does have more approval votes than Tim Scott and DeSantis and The Rock and Alan Lee and RFK. So Trump isn't at the bottom of the list, but he's definitely not at the top. And neither is Biden. Where the hell is Biden? Oh, Biden's actually not too bad. He's number 5. Yeah, so there you go. Check out ofthepeople.us. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Keep it real. Bye, nerds.